My sister slapped me in front of 200 people at her wedding because I refused to give her my penthouse. She didn't know a judge was watching. It all happened at my sister's extravagant wedding, where my parents once again insisted that I do the right thing and hand over my home for her new family. Mom scolded, "Selfish children don't deserve success." Dad added, "Your sister's children need a real home." Sabrina just smirked, as if finally getting what she thought she always deserved. When I said no, she struck me hard across the face, in front of the entire crowd. Laughter rippled through the ballroom, but I didn't cry. Instead, I chose the kind of revenge that would silence every one of them. The champagne flute trembled in my hand as I watched my sister glide across the marble floor of the Ritz-Carlton's grand ballroom. Her Vera Wang gown flowed behind her like liquid silk. 200 guests had gathered to witness her fairy tale wedding to Derek, a charming investment banker she'd met only 8 months earlier. I couldn't help but notice the irony. She was marrying for money while demanding mine. I'm Vivien, 32 years old, and I've worked relentlessly to get where I am. While Sabrina spent her 20s finding herself and dating anyone with a car and a smile, I was pulling all-nighters in law school, then logging 70-hour weeks at one of Manhattan's top firms. 5 years ago, I took the biggest leap of my career and started my own business litigation firm. It was a gamble that paid off. Last year, I closed a massive settlement, enough to buy a penthouse overlooking Central Park. Now, apparently, that home belonged to everyone but me. "Vivien, darling, you look radiant," my mother Diane said, flashing her usual practiced smile, the kind she reserved for when she wanted something. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her navy gown expensive enough to rival the decor. "We need to have a quick family chat," she added sweetly. My stomach dropped. In our family, chats were never good news. "Mom, it's Sabrina's wedding day," I said. "Can't this wait?" But my father, Robert, appeared beside her before I could move away, stern and composed in his tuxedo. Even at 58, he carried himself with the kind of presence that drew attention, though his eyes still carried the disappointment I'd known my entire life. "We've been talking about your living situation," he said. "My living situation?" I repeated, setting down my drink. "What about it?" Mom's voice turned syrupy sweet. "Well, you know how Sabrina and Derek are starting a family? They'll need more room than that little apartment Derek's been renting." "They're not even pregnant," I said flatly. "But they will be soon," Sabrina cut in, appearing at my side with Derek's arm wrapped around her waist. She looked every bit the picture-perfect bride, auburn hair, green eyes, and that polished smile she'd practiced her whole life. "We're planning to start trying right away," she said. "Congratulations," I replied evenly. "I'm sure you'll find a great place to raise your family." "We already have," Sabrina said, her smile brightening. "We want your penthouse." The words hit harder than the champagne. "Excuse me?" Dad stepped forward in his usual voice of reason. "Now, before you get defensive, Vivien, think about it logically. You're single. You don't need that much space. Sabrina and Derek are starting a family. They do. You want me to give up my home?" I said, stunned. "Not give up," Mom corrected quickly. "Trade. You could take Derek's apartment. It's perfectly suitable for one person." "A 600-square-foot studio in Queens?" I said bluntly. "You want me to trade my 3-bedroom Upper West Side penthouse for that?" "Don't be so dramatic, Vivien," Sabrina chimed in. "You don't even use all that space. What do you need 3 bedrooms for? You don't even have a boyfriend." The jab stung, exactly as she intended. Sabrina had always been the golden child. When she dropped out of college, my parents called it self-discovery. When she bounced from one relationship to another, they said she was exploring her options. When I graduated summa cum laude from law school, they worried I was working too hard. I need those rooms because it's my home, I said, my voice rising. I earned it, I paid for it, and I'm not giving it up. Vivien Elizabeth Morrison, Mom snapped, her tone turning sharp. That's incredibly selfish. Family comes first. Family? I laughed bitterly. When have any of you treated me like family? When I studied for the bar, you said I was antisocial. When I started my firm, you said I was reckless. When I finally succeeded, you called it luck. That's not true, Dad said weakly. The jab stung, exactly as she intended. Sabrina had always been the golden child. When she dropped out of college, my parents called it self-dis. Isn't it? I asked. When was the last time any of you even asked how I was doing, unless you wanted something? Sabrina's eyes flared. You know what your problem is, Vivien? You've always been jealous of me. You can't stand that I'm getting married, that I'll have the family you'll never have. I'm not jealous of you, Sabrina, I said calmly. I'm disappointed in you. Disappointed? She scoffed. I'm the one getting married. I'll give Mom and Dad their grandkids. What have you done besides make money? I've built a life, I said softly. A life I worked hard for. Well, now it's time to do something for your family, Dad said firmly. Robert's right, Mom added. Selfish children don't deserve success. You've had everything handed to you, and you still won't help your sister. I almost laughed. Handed to me? I worked 3 jobs to pay for law school. I lived off ramen for years building my firm. I never asked you for a dime. Your sister's kids need real homes, Dad said loudly enough for nearby guests to turn and look. They deserve better. They're not even conceived, I shot back. But I knew I was losing. My family had always been experts at turning my success into guilt. Sabrina stepped closer, her voice lowering, but her words dripping with venom. You know what, Vivien? I'm done pretending to care about your feelings. I've always known I was the better daughter, prettier, more likable, the one who makes Mom and Dad proud. And now I'm finally getting what I've always deserved. Her words lingered in the air, sharp and deliberate. A small crowd of guests began to gather, sensing the tension. Conversations around us quieted. And what is it you think you deserve, Sabrina? I asked evenly. Everything, she said. The penthouse, the respect, the life you've been hoarding for yourself. I deserve it all, and I'm finally going to get it. Before I could respond, her hand whipped across my face. The sound cracked through the ballroom like a gunshot. 200 guests froze mid-sentence. Then came the laughter, soft at first, then growing into an ugly wave of amusement. She actually slapped her, someone whispered. About time someone put Vivien in her place, another voice snickered. My cheek burned, but I refused to cry. I stood tall, the heat of humiliation giving way to a cold, focused calm. Sabrina smiled smugly, savoring her triumph. Maybe now you'll start acting like a real sister, she sneered. Behind her, my parents didn't move. No apology, no defense, just silent judgment, waiting to see if I'd surrender. That was when it hit me. This wasn't about a home. It was about control, about keeping me beneath them no matter how hard I worked. But they'd made a crucial mistake. They had humiliated me in front of 200 witnesses, many of them high-profile figures from New York's legal and business world, people who respected me, people who knew my worth. I reached into my clutch and pulled out my phone. My hands were steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Vivien, what are you doing? Mom asked nervously. I ignored her and began typing. Put that away, Dad ordered. You're embarrassing yourself. No, I said quietly. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed. Sabrina reached out to grab my phone, but I stepped back and hit send just before her fingers touched the screen. Her smile faltered. What did you just do? I looked at her, my parents, and the crowd still watching, their laughter dying as curiosity took over. I chose the kind of revenge that doesn't need shouting, I said evenly. The kind that lasts. Confusion flashed across their faces. They clearly expected me to cry or storm off, not to fight back. Then my phone started buzzing, one message after another. Vivien, what did you send? Mom demanded, panic creeping into her voice. I gave her the first genuine smile of the evening. I sent a message to my group chat. You know, the one with my lawyer friends, journalists, and business contacts. The people who actually matter in this city. Sabrina went pale. What kind of message? Oh, just a quick update, I said casually, about how my family demanded I give up my penthouse to my sister and her husband. How Mom said, selfish children don't deserve success. How Dad claimed my sister's hypothetical kids needed a real home more than I do. And how my sister slapped me in front of 200 guests because I wouldn't hand over my life's work. The entire ballroom fell silent. Even the string quartet stopped playing. I also mentioned, I added, how everyone laughed when it happened. How funny they thought it was, watching a successful woman get put in her place by her own family. Delete that right now, Dad growled, his voice low with warning. Delete what? I said calmly. The truth? Too late. It's already out there. You know how social media works, Dad. Once it's public, it's permanent. My phone kept vibrating. Messages of shock, outrage, and support lighting up the screen. The story was already spreading faster than I could have imagined. You vindictive, Sabrina began, her voice shaking. No, Sabrina, I cut her off. I'm just done being your doormat. Derek, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke up. Vivien, maybe we can fix this. We didn't mean for it to go this far. I looked at him with pity. You married into the wrong family, Derek. You have no idea what you stepped into. What do you mean? He asked, confused. I mean, I said slowly, that you and your in-laws just made some very powerful enemies. Do you know who Judge Margaret Chen is? He shook his head. She was here tonight. She saw everything. She's already texted me, said she's disgusted by what she witnessed. Sabrina's complexion turned ghostly white. Judge Chen was one of New York's most respected figures, and she had zero patience for entitlement. Oh, and David Rodriguez from the Times, I added. He's been following me around all evening for an interview about my last case. He saw everything. He's already asking for a comment about how successful women are treated by their families. Vivien, stop, Mom pleaded. You're going to ruin your sister's wedding. Sabrina ruined her own wedding when she decided to slap me in front of 200 people, I replied. It was just a slap, Sabrina said, trembling. You're being dramatic. No, Sabrina, I said firmly. It was assault, witnessed by 200 people, including a judge, a journalist, and multiple attorneys. My phone rang. I glanced at the screen and smiled. Well, this is interesting, I said. Amanda Walsh from Walsh & Associates is calling. You know, the top reputation management law firm in the city? She's offering to represent me, pro bono. Sabrina's face drained of color. Everyone in New York's elite circles knew what that meant. The story had already exploded. Vivien, please, Sabrina whispered. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I lost control. You're not sorry for what you did, I said quietly. You're sorry that people saw it, that there are consequences now. Tears began to form in her eyes. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone it was a mistake. It's too late, I said. The damage is done. And it was. I could see it on the faces of the guests still standing around us. The laughter was gone. Now there was only discomfort and judgment. The story was already viral. In New York high society, reputation is everything. The music had completely stopped. The ballroom was silent except for the soft hum of whispers. Every eye in the room was fixed on us, on me. For the first time that night, I wasn't the one under their control. I was the one holding it. Mom took a hesitant step toward me. Her voice was calm, but laced with panic. "Vivien, sweetheart, let's just talk about this privately. You're upset, and you've made your point." "My point?" I repeated softly. "You think this was about proving a point?" Dad sighed, rubbing his temples like he was the victim here. "You've embarrassed all of us, Vivien. Do you understand that? You've turned a small family disagreement into a public scandal." I turned to face him fully. "A disagreement? You and Mom ambushed me in front of strangers, called me selfish, and demanded I give my home away to Sabrina, then stood there while she hit me. That's not a disagreement, Dad. That's humiliation." "You're overreacting," he said sharply. "You've always been dramatic." I laughed bitterly. "Dramatic? That's what you call standing up for myself?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Even the servers had stopped moving, trays frozen mid-air. I stepped closer to my parents, lowering my voice so only they could hear. "You've spent my whole life reminding me that family comes first, as long as it's on your terms. You never wanted a daughter who was independent. You wanted a daughter who'd stay quiet and grateful." Mom's lips tightened. "Don't twist this into something it's not. We just wanted fairness." "Fairness?" I said, tilting my head. "Then why didn't you ever ask Sabrina to give me anything?" Her silence was answer enough. Sabrina reached out again, her tone trembling but defensive. "Vivien, please, this isn't you. You're not the type to destroy your family like this." I looked her in the eye. "No, Sabrina, you destroyed this family the moment you turned them against me for your own convenience." The murmurs grew louder. I caught glimpses of guests filming discreetly with their phones, capturing the downfall of the perfect family. It was poetic, really. For years, my parents had built our image around appearances, charity galas, press features, social photos. And now, that image was unraveling in real time. I turned toward the crowd, my voice calm but cutting. "For those of you watching, I want to be clear. This isn't about money or property. It's about what happens when a family decides that one child's success is something to resent instead of celebrate." No one moved. The silence was almost reverent. "I worked for everything I have," I continued. "Every late night, every promotion, every case I won. It wasn't handed to me. And tonight, when I refused to give it away, they called me ungrateful." I glanced back at my parents. "You should have known better than to try and break me in front of witnesses." Dad's jaw tightened. "You're making enemies you'll regret having." "No," I said quietly. "You're mistaking independence for rebellion. I'm not your enemy, Dad, but you made me one the moment you decided love was conditional." For a long moment, no one spoke. The tension was suffocating. Then, from the back of the room, a voice broke through the silence. "Good for you, Vivien." Heads turned. It was Judge Chen, standing tall and composed. "You have nothing to apologize for," she said. "Your family should be ashamed, not you." Her words rippled through the crowd like a current. More guests nodded in agreement. Subtle at first, Then openly. Sabrina looked around in disbelief. "You're all taking her side?" No one answered. That was answer enough. Mom's voice cracked. "Vivien, you've humiliated us. I hope you're proud of yourself." I took a slow breath. Proud? No. Relieved? Absolutely. I turned to leave, my heels echoing across the marble floor. But before I reached the exit, I stopped and looked back one last time. "Oh, one more thing," I said, my tone casual but precise. "Tomorrow morning, my lawyer will send you a notice regarding the penthouse. Since you both believe it should belong to family, I've decided to formalize that." Sabrina frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'm adding a clause to my will," I said. "If anything happens to me, the property will be donated to a women's legal aid foundation, the same one that helps women stand up to financial and emotional abuse. Not a single square foot will go to any of you." The gasps were audible. Dad stepped forward, face red with fury. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I am," I said. "Because this house, that penthouse, was supposed to be a symbol of everything I achieved on my own. And now it will be a symbol of something even better: freedom." I walked out before anyone could reply. The night air outside was cold, but it felt cleaner somehow. I took a deep breath, letting the noise of the ballroom fade behind me. My phone buzzed again. Another message, another wave of support. For the first time in years, I felt light, not angry, not broken, just free. As I got into the car, I glanced at the reflection of the hotel lights fading in the window. The humiliation, the slap, the public betrayal, it all replayed in my mind. But instead of pain, I felt clarity. Because sometimes losing your family isn't a tragedy. It's the beginning of your peace. The next morning, New York woke up to headlines that no one in my family could have prepared for. Socialite slaps sister over penthouse. Backlash erupts after viral video. Attorney humiliated at family event speaks out on entitlement and gender bias. The footage had spread everywhere, from local news blogs to national outlets. Clips of Sabrina's slap, my calm response, and Judge Chen's public support had already racked up millions of views. I didn't have to say a word. The internet did it for me. Comments flooded in, some from women sharing their own stories of being disrespected by family, others from professionals praising the way I handled myself. It was surreal watching the narrative shift in real time. For once, I wasn't the villain in my family's story. I was the one who finally stopped playing along. Meanwhile, Sabrina's life began to unravel, quietly but fast. The wedding coverage that was supposed to appear in the Times was pulled. Her brand partnerships, gone. The charity board she'd just joined, they issued a statement distancing themselves from recent events inconsistent with our values. Even Derek's company released a PR notice saying he was taking a leave of absence to focus on family matters. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, they'd used appearances to define worth, and now appearances were the very thing destroying them. I stayed silent. No interviews, no statements, just quiet professionalism. My silence said more than any press release ever could. But behind the calm, I wasn't celebrating. I felt sad in a way, because no matter how justified it was, it still hurt to realize that my own family had seen me as competition instead of kin. One evening, about a week later, I received a message. It was from Sabrina. "Vivien, please, can we talk privately?" I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back a single word. "No." She replied again. "I'm sorry for everything. I've lost everything because of that night. Please, just hear me out." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have ignored her. I could have deleted the message. But something in me, maybe closure, maybe curiosity, told me to meet her. We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown, neutral ground. When she arrived, she looked nothing like the flawless, confident sister from the wedding. Her makeup was minimal, her hair pulled back, her posture uncertain. "Vivien," she said softly, "you look good." "I am," I said simply. We sat in silence for a moment before she finally spoke. "I ruined everything, didn't I?" I didn't answer. I just waited. She sighed. "I was jealous of how people respected you, of how Mom and Dad secretly bragged about you, even when they acted like they didn't. You had everything I wanted: stability, recognition, purpose. I thought if I could take one thing from you, it would make me feel better." I leaned back, studying her. "Did it?" She shook her head, tears forming. "No, it made me feel smaller, empty." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, but sympathy didn't erase what she'd done. "Sabrina," I said gently, "I don't hate you. I just don't trust you anymore, and I don't think I ever will." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I understand." We sat in silence for a while, just two sisters who had finally run out of things to hurt each other with. Before leaving, she reached into her bag and slid an envelope across the table. "These are the documents for the penthouse transfer. I signed them. You can keep it. I don't want anything from you anymore." I didn't touch the envelope. "Keep it." When she left, I sat there for a while, watching the city move outside the window, the endless hum of people rushing somewhere, chasing something. And I realized that for the first time in a long while, I wasn't chasing anything. I already had what I needed: peace. That night, I drafted a letter to my parents, not to reconcile, but to release. "Mom, Dad, I've spent my whole life trying to make you proud, believing that love had to be earned. But I've learned something you never taught me. Love isn't a reward, it's a choice. I choose to forgive you, not because you asked for it, but because I refuse to let bitterness define me. I'm moving forward, without resentment, without guilt, and without needing your approval. I hope one day you'll do the same." I signed it, folded it neatly, and mailed it the next morning. Weeks later, I received no reply, but that was fine. Silence, I'd learned, can be its own kind of closure. And as I stood in my penthouse, looking out at the skyline I'd built my life beneath, I finally smiled. Not the practiced smile of a dutiful daughter or successful lawyer, but the quiet, genuine smile of someone who had taken her power back. Because revenge, I realized, isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's simply about peace, the kind that comes when you stop letting others define your worth. Months passed. The scandal that had once consumed every social feed eventually faded, replaced by newer headlines, fresher drama. The internet always moves on, but peace, real peace, doesn't. It lingers. My life settled into a quiet rhythm again. Morning started with coffee by the window, watching the city below, the same view that once symbolized loneliness, now reminding me of survival. At work, I noticed the change. My colleagues looked at me differently, not with pity, but with respect. The story of what happened had turned into something else entirely, a cautionary tale about standing your ground, even when it means standing alone. Judge Chen invited me to speak at a women's conference. Her introduction was simple. Vivien taught us that dignity isn't something anyone can take from you, unless you hand it over. I didn't talk about my family that night. I talked about resilience, about learning to walk away from the people who love the idea of you more than the reality. The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was steady, sincere, like the closing of a door on the past. Afterward, I took a cab back home. The city lights blurred against the glass, reflections of a life I'd rebuilt from silence. When I stepped into the penthouse, the air felt different, lighter. Maybe because for the first time, it truly belonged to me. Not as a possession, but as a choice. I wandered to the balcony, the skyline stretching endlessly in front of me. Somewhere out there, my parents were probably still pretending everything was fine. Sabrina was likely trying to rebuild her image, piece by piece. But me, I was done pretending. I thought about the night of the wedding, the slap, the gasps, the way laughter had turned to horror. And I realized something. That night hadn't destroyed me. It had revealed me. It showed me who I really was beneath the layers of expectation. Not the daughter they wanted, not the sister they envied, but the woman I had fought to become. The woman who refused to apologize for her success. The woman who understood that family doesn't always mean love. And the woman who finally understood that peace doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from finally choosing yourself. As the wind brushed against my hair, I whispered something into the night. Not a wish, not a prayer, just gratitude. For the lesson, for the freedom, for the ending that looked nothing like revenge, but felt exactly like justice. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, soft, fading. The city pulsed on, indifferent, alive. I smiled faintly and turned back inside, closing the balcony door behind me. The sound of it shutting was quiet, but to me, it was thunderous, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't closing a door to keep anyone out. I was closing it to finally let myself in, fade to black.